Just a quick note, I just want to say to all the seniors, PGs applying to colleges or maybe hearing back soon, get in somewhere and just flourish, okay? Get in somewhere, maybe it's not your dream school, maybe it's not number 1, number 2, or number 3, maybe it's a safety that you thought you would never go to. Go there and just do well, and trust me, you'll have a great time. Alright, so let's get on with it, shall we? So, hello, hi, hey, how are you? My name is Mahalia Bazile, and as you can tell by my opening, I wasn't necessarily exactly 100% sure as to how I would start this delicate, important, and extremely necessary conversation about race and differences with you all today. So I decided to take a couple steps back to when I was in your shoes. Right now, I stand before you all as a soon-to-be college graduate with aspirations in Washington, D.C., with my college career primarily focused in activism and social justice. But this is the me now, okay? Let's talk about the me then. Let's talk about 2010, when I began my freshman year at Cheshire Academy. I was unsure of myself, unsure of the people around me, and just pretty anxious to fit in. Now, I wouldn't say I wanted to blend in, or to be a fly on the wall, or that I was a nervous wreck wandering through the halls or on campus, but I wanted friends. Because when you first start off somewhere new, you just want someone or people to experience all that newness with. At least, that was the case for me. And I will tell you, I made the greatest group of friends in the history of group of friends at Cheshire Academy. Quote me, challenge me on this, I kid you not, we have a group chat named adequately, I may add, the Real Housewives of CA. And it will serve, I'm sure, as the catalyst to many toasts we will dedicate to one another as we continue to age and go through life event after life event. I love these guys because what I didn't know then that I know now is that I love stories. I love their stories. I love being surrounded by people with vastly different upbringings, challenges, strengths, and motivations than me. They made my time at CA so colorful. And looking back, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Because as an adolescent, their experiences, and as well as my own, grew me into a more fierce, careful, and honest critical thinker, and ultimately an activist. So, what does all of this have to do about race, about differences, about MLK? Well, it should be evident. I was a black girl in a primarily white space. And as a person of color, race is infused in every aspect of my life, whether I agree to it or not. And that was a very real fact I learned here. Now, I want to remind you all that I'm going to do my best to be 3 things for the next 10 or so minutes. And that's incredibly honest, moderately sensitive, and most importantly, a little vulnerable. When I first started my time here, I was unsure of myself and others, partly because this was the first time I moved away from home. But it was also the first time that people that looked like me, people who had similar life experiences as me, were in the minority. I didn't know people would be as keen to be my friend as they would try to be the pretty girls, the pretty blondes next door's friend. And that made me insecure. You see, regardless if I liked it or not, the first thing people would see about me was my race and the features that hailed from it. From my dark brown eyes to the curls on my head. A woman's hair is often described as a crown. And to go a little deeper, a person's pride and even their confidence in themselves can be tied in how they value or appreciate their hair. Well, here's a story about how I found strength in my natural hair, and how in doing so taught me how to connect with people who had no idea how important or symbolic natural hair was to me, my culture, or my blackness. When I went here, I wore my natural hair tight in a bun behind my head or on the top of my head. When I was younger in my hometown of Newark, New Jersey, I was pressured to get a relaxer to permanently straighten my hair because that's what was considered beautiful. After only a year of my hair straightened, I decided in high school I wanted to be unapologetically myself. So I cut off the straight ends bit by bit. and started to rediscover a sense of myself I thought was lost. A sense of myself I was told indirectly most of the time and directly some of the time was ugly, unfit, unkempt, and just all around not good enough. In my classes, all the girls around me had silky straight hair that laid nicely on their backs, that blew in the wind and probably smelled of some fruit. This was a stark difference to the me with tightly coiled hair, which refused to lay anywhere and always seemed to defy gravity. It smelled of coconut oil and hair pomade, and always was a hassle to do in the morning. But it was uniquely mine. I took immense pride in that. I was often told while I went here that it was like I had a puffball on the top of my head, and people would call me Poof. It wasn't like people meant harm necessarily. Even my close friends would slip up and say it. They would call my updo style or ponytail a Poof because that's how they could relate to it. That's how they could make sense of my hair, because maybe this was the first time in their life they interacted with someone with natural hair such as mine. But it made me feel different when I wanted to belong. My hair was a gag or tool for conversation at times, when all I wanted was to have it simply exist, and we to talk about something we all can relate to. Because my hair was foreign to some, it was an easy topic. However, it's the only hair that I had ever known. It was my normal, and my normal was made to seem unusual or exotic. So I had a dilemma. How to get people to understand my hair was just hair. How do I get people to understand my perspective as a young black woman, or young black girl at the time, with natural hair? And that their comments about it hurt me, because it didn't single me out for having beautiful hair, but weird and different hair. Now, this is where my incredible friends stepped in. They showed me how truly amazing they were. My friend group was diverse racially, and they came from all over the world. We would talk about everything underneath the sun: race, social class, sexuality. These were breakfast conversations, guys. We would even try to deconstruct the gender binary, but you know, that's a conversation for another time. We just really wanted to understand people, all kinds of people, and empathize with their stories. But like I mentioned, sometimes my hair would come up and the poof comments would start. You see, there's nothing wrong with momentary ignorance if you truly do not understand that your words might offend. But continued or willful ignorance after someone has opened up to you serves to only alienate you from social understanding of people different than you. I mean to say, if I, in this particular case, a young black girl, felt slighted that you referred to my hair as anything but hair, and you continue to do so regardless of my feelings on the matter, even though you're speaking about me directly, you have effectively thrown out my voice, written over my existence, and trampled over my feelings because I briefly made you look at yourself through my eyes. And maybe you didn't like what you saw. That you could be interpreted as hateful, biased, bigoted, or racist. And those thoughts scared you so much that you decided to ignore my comments and move on with your life, because that's easier than confronting the sides of you that might very well be hateful, biased, bigoted, or racist. I remember looking back to my conversations with my friends over my hair and told them that my hair represented so much more because it was natural. It was defiant in an American culture which would have us all look only one kind of beautiful. I told them my feelings regarding the puff/poof comments, and I wondered if they would brush it off, ignore it, or say I was overreacting. I was nervous because we were newly friends and I didn't want to jeopardize my friendships by talking about what can turn into a serious conversations about European beauty standards and what it does to women of color that just don't adhere to it. Would they dismiss me? Would they dismiss my thoughts? Well, being the outstanding human beings that they were, they held my hand, apologized, and we spoke about beauty, perspective, and self-worth. And looking back, That was my first instance at Cheshire Academy that made me embrace my difference as beautiful rather than an obstacle to get over. It was one of the first moments I used my voice to help bring awareness to an issue I don't believe they may have ever contemplated before, and in doing so, help to diversify their world and increase their understanding of it. And it was a moment that made me bond. It was a moment that I will always treasure. This moment, here we go. And it was a moment that made me bond deeper with people I thought that would be uninterested or unmoved in the concerns of some black girl. I gave them the opportunity to prove me wrong, and that was one of the best decisions I've ever done, and I continue to do. Now, let's move away from here, because maybe some people don't relate to that, and let's talk about social status. A sought-after, heavily regarded tool, especially in high school. I mean, who's talking about you? What are they saying? And let's be honest, how much of it satisfied or boosted your ego? Social status relates to everyone. It is a human need to feel appreciated and wanted for either your work or sparkling personality. And it can be a tool to separate people into neat social groups. Social status can be attributed to a hierarchy of sorts to define who's on top and who's not. If there are cool kids, then there must be uncool kids. There has to be something to make them different from another. With all-around charisma and personality, that goes into social status, but also race. As a student at Cheshire Academy, I was routinely asked, why don't you sit with the black kids at lunch? By random peers. And if I remember correctly, they seemed to be a mixture of concerned and confused. That question still bothers me to this day, because in truth, I didn't have to sit anywhere, and I didn't owe anyone an explanation. But it bugged me when I was here. I would ask myself questions like, should I sit there? Should I sit here? Do people talk about me not sitting here? Am I weird for not sitting there? I'll put it bluntly. When I went here, there were a handful of black and brown students, and guess what? Some sat together at lunch. Simple. And to me, it seemed natural because we often connect with people that resemble us. That's fair of all people, regardless of race. But much emphasis was placed on the black kids that sat together, or maybe the Asian kids that sat together, or maybe a group of students from the same racial background group that sat together. And how that suddenly equated to all the black kids should sit together. Or is it weird that that Asian girl over there doesn't sit with all the other Asian kids? Now, I hope you all know where I'm going with this. That's problematic. That's problematic thinking that you have been conditioned, that I probably said some things that maybe you yourself have said. In high school, cliques or friend groups should be formed based on interests. You're maybe on the same sports team. You like the same television show, from similar areas. The list goes on. The list is endless. I sat with my diverse group of friends because I liked them, simply as any other student should. But I felt this weird pressure with every student that questioned, why didn't I sit there or here at a particular table or group? It made me deeply uncomfortable. When I was here, I didn't fully realize why I felt so uncomfortable and why I felt like I needed to prove myself to people that otherwise weren't interested or invested in me personally. Now looking back, I've come to this realization. We have all been taught and have internalized the idea that it's normal to place people into groups that make sense to us rather than them. This is embedded in our history, and it's only been escalated through media and social separating. You've been conditioned to think black people do this, white people do that, and Asian people do this, and so on and so forth. We've been conditioned to generalize rather than socialize with people that are different than us. It's what our country and many countries around the world have been doing since one group of people thought themselves better than another, then took systematic steps to ensure this hierarchy/separation would continue for centuries to come. And look here we are, as a country, as a collective society. We still haven't done much about it. Be honest. Think about it yourself. There are impoverished cities all over the country with majority black and brown residents, while about, let's say, a 30-minute to an hour drive sleeps a quiet, wealthy neighborhood with majority white residents. This is nothing new. And I'm sure you may have thought of your own towns or neighborhoods that fall into one or another of these categories nicely. The system is at work even if you don't notice it. I remember as a kid I was fed the same narrative all my life through movies and popular TV shows, the fact that all my teachers, doctors, anyone in a position of power or leadership looked differently than me. I was inadvertently told that somehow white or simply not black meant inherently better, more skilled, more educated, and more successful. I struggled with this initially coming to CA because being here seemed to reconfirm those thoughts. When I came here, I saw wealth I never fully actualized in this country. Newark is my home where my family and I spent our entire lives. And growing up, I had no idea places like boarding schools even existed. Places like Connecticut even existed. I marveled at the fact that we had separate buildings for classes. I admired my peers from all over the world with all their materialistic things and their fancy this and name brand that, but ultimately it made me feel small. The hardest lesson I learned at Cheshire Academy is that I could finally see how differently I lived, and therefore I knew where in this hierarchy I belonged. With everyone's smart comment about why I didn't sit here or why I sit over there meant that I shouldn't sit anywhere. Like I was being told repeatedly, know your place, and that scared me because I wasn't built for a box, and I hated the idea of people putting me in one. I learned my hardest lesson at CA, but it soon turned into my greatest. I know I've talked about my group of friends a fair amount, but friends really do make your high school and college experience. My friends, especially at boarding school, were my chosen family, and their families soon felt like my family. That's Mr. McBreen, by the way. Me and his son go way back, and I hung out at his house a lot. We embraced each other for who we were, not for what the world would make us out to be. It was through being their friend, when I thought they wouldn't necessarily have me, I found my greatest strength. I found out the messages that we were sold when we were young that scrutinized our self-worth and placed us where we belonged were only as true as you let them. That surrounding yourself with people that looked, acted, had different goals and life experiences than me helped to grow and diversify my overall being. I let go of the status quo and threw away social status, and I've made and continue to make my own rules about where I belong and ultimately what will become of me. Learning from people is one of the best ways to learn about yourself, and I encourage you all to make friends with someone you wouldn't think to, and watch how you both will flourish. I've talked about hair and social status thus far, and maybe before today you've never connected the two, but you're looking at the connection right here. I'm right in front of you. But in all, I'm telling you snippets of my story that happened here at Cheshire Academy that helped forge me into what some might call a social justice warrior. Some ironically use this term to call people special snowflakes or claim we are too sensitive and should get over being so politically correct all the time. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm not special. I traveled to South Africa and jumped off the world's highest bungee jump bridge. I'm not sensitive. I'm completely aware that in this country, we haven't learned nearly enough about our history and keep conversations about race and social justice arm's length away because we're used to it, and we have been conditioned to be unaware of it. Now I want to charge all of you to wake up. Immerse yourselves in the stories of others that are vastly different than your own. Be profoundly empathetic and understand that the way you see things is not everyone's truth. Know that feelings are valid and speak up when you witness injustice because not everyone has the voice to do so. Connect, build relationships, diversify yourself and community. I like to think of social justice warriors and myself as a bridge to bring people together who taught they were supposed to be on opposing sides. And a lot of the foundation of who I am was made right in these halls. Right now, the dining hall, the J.J. White, the Humanities Building. I was honed by my experience and all of them that I mentioned before. And it got me thinking how I could make the world a better place. How could I do more? So, let me flip it on you. What are you going to do? What will you become in a country that currently challenges the civil rights and freedom to feel protected and loved? In a country that has yet to fully tackle its traumatic history with race and slavery? Or what will you take away from a country struggling to come to grips with its own diverse nature and share it with your own? There's always a side of history to be on, whether you're aware of it or not. And I will always choose the side with love. That's why I was president of Unified Black Student Society in college, why I march and support Black Lives Matter, why I answered the call and decided, hey, I'm going to come back. I'm going to speak to my old high school. And this is the hope that we can address racial tensions wherever they lie, political or social, by taking steps to create safe places for careful and difficult conversations. I always challenge my generation to do more, and I challenge the next to do better. I've been inspired by many people in my life, but I would like to share 2 quotes that mean a lot to me, and I hope will inspire you. The first being from Martin Luther King Jr., who saw a vision for justice and peace and paid the ultimate price for it. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daylight of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. And the next, from my personal favorites, James Baldwin. The really terrible thing, old buddy, is that you must accept them. And I mean that very seriously. You must accept them and accept them with love, for these innocent people have no other hope. They are in effect still trapped in a history which they do not understand, and until they understand it, they cannot be released from it. They have had to believe for many years, for the normal reasons, that Black men are inferior to white men. But these men are your brothers, your lost younger brothers. And if the word integration means anything, this is what it means, that we with love shall force our brothers to see themselves as they are, to cease fleeing from reality and begin to change it. For this is your home, my friend. Do not be driven from it. Great men have done great things here, and they will again. And we can make America what America must become. We live in a time where people in high-ranking positions of power say some hurtful, bigoted, and some downright hateful speech with no regard on how their words might influence a growing divide in this country. See past that divide and see each other. See people who have the same dreams and hopes as you and connect with them. Build and create a more equal community so a person in power in whatever system, whether it's race or leadership or government, understands that celebrating and understanding difference is a fundamental human value that we should never neglect. I charge you, as I charge myself every day, to always make America what America must become. Inclusive, diverse, and no matter the times we live in, to always encourage with love. Thanks.